Oh, good morning.
Yeah,
Did I lose you?
there we go.
Oh, yeah.
How we doing?
Good. Good. Last week's podcast with Liam Anderson, uh, linebacker at the NFL, really has a lot of people buzzing. It was really got a lot of traction, a lot of people interested in what he had to say. I'm still releasing clips on it, which is pretty cool. So, I've done a bunch, I think, so far, but trying to do more because there's a lot of great things on there, especially for high school kids. A lot of stuff that even though it's kind of basic, it hits home because you see a guy he wasn't he wasn't a 5-star, right? So like it's easy for when kids look at a 5-star and a 5-star says I did this or that, like that may not be as realistic for every kid, right? But
Right.
Liam Anderson's
I mean, you're
rose
talking about a kid I don't even think had a star.
probably didn't have a star. But Leah, going FCS, being he was a star at his high school. It wasn't like he wasn't a star. He was he was the leader of the team. He was the best player on the team. He was an FCS recruit. He went on to Holy Cross, and now has signed a free agent contract in the NFL. He's going to have to work obviously there to continue to stay in the NFL. Like that's a road to me that everybody has to have a certain amount of athleticism to be able to be as good as Liam Anderson. But no matter what your level is, those are by working hard and doing the things that you need to do and being a good student, following the things that your coaches need you to be able to do, doing the extra work that you need to do, gives you a path to be able to do that. And today, hopefully, we'll be able to talk with a not just prominent head coach, but one of the top programs in the state of Florida, Mike Smith, and that's going to be really exciting to talk from a coach's standpoint. About everything. I mean, not just coaching ball, but how development of players and those kind of things.
Right. And I think the whole, the traction for Liam in itself is because, he took what I would think is more of a way or more of the path that a lot of these high school guys deal with where, he's playing 3 sports, football wasn't even kind of on the radar, and then to get to ultimately become a college football player and a pretty good one to make himself and get himself kind of onto a roster, I think going, through an FCS school is something that, a lot of these guys think that they have to be able to do, or go this way or do this, or I need to have this many stars, that type of stuff. For him to go and do those and get to the level that he's at in a different type of way, and then to be able to share that with our guys, I think was just tremendous in itself. Because I think a lot more of our guys can kind of relate to that world, than maybe some of these 5-star guys that are getting these scholarship offers and doing that kind of stuff, which is they get promoted the most, but that's the rarity,
Absolutely. No, there's no doubt about it. I mean, that's what makes it such an important thing, that they have to go through a different process. And it'll be cool today because when we talked with Coach, obviously he has some of those guys that we would consider 5-stars, right? So,
right.
And I'm sure he has a mix of those on their team, but so it'd be really interesting to talk about all that process.
Right. I mean, you're talking about a guy that as an assistant coach dealt with a bunch of 5-stars, right? And now currently just produced the number 1 receiver in last year's class, Brandon Innes, going to already at Ohio State after graduating this year. He's got a 2026 number 1 receiver in that class already with tons of offers and hasn't even played a snap his sophomore year yet. Not to mention the area where he is, one of the top, areas of the country. We're talking state, yes, in Florida, but like area in general, that Fort Lauderdale, Miami area, which has, 5 schools that are in the
Broward County, right?
Right. Yeah. Miami-Dade, you know what I'm saying? Like that area. I mean, in the top 25, they have 6 schools right there, 6 high schools, So you're talking about, I mean, look, just a lot of things that he deals with on a day-to-day basis, a lot of things that, interesting story in itself, coming from New Jersey, right down there, an assistant coach for a long time, I believe over 10 years, and then ultimately gets the nod to be the head coach. And now going into year 2. So just how he manages that type of, all those kinds of things that we don't even think about, right? Like the off the field stuff when you're dealing with a school with high prominence. This guy wants to go here. This guy's coming here. I know the rules in Florida are a little different too when it comes to transfer in terms of that kind of stuff. So I just got a message. He's hopping on in a couple. He's just dealing with some issues, he said. So life of a high school coach never changes, I guess.
Yeah, right. So
but
like
even the rich, that deal with, they got to deal with the same kind of things that we deal with, and ultimately how you deal with them in that can change certain things,
Absolutely. Well, now where's Coach Smith from originally?
So he went to High Point High School in Sussex County. So he's originally a North Jersey guy, went down to Townsend, played his college ball there, and then ultimately went down to Florida in, I believe, 2005. So he's been down there for a little over, 15 years. Kind of got onto American Heritage in its, I want to say, I don't want infancy maybe, and he can, kind of tab into this a little bit, but we can kind of set the stage. Was an assistant coach, running backs coach, strength and conditioning type of guy. Went down there, and that's really where he made his kind of set the tone for them, where they looked at him like he was something more than just a coach, was the strength and conditioning aspect that he kind of brought that down to South Florida where it wasn't really a thing yet. And then ultimately these guys kind of followed suit, started training, and he's coached some really high-end talent in terms of guys in the NFL. He's coached under some coaches that are now onto bigger and better things. I know he coached with Mike Rumpf, who's now a DB coach with University of Miami. Patrick Surtain, who we all know his son is one of the best corners in the league, plays for the Broncos, but he now coaches with he was with the Miami Dolphins for a little bit, and now he is back at Florida State coaching DBs. So he's coached with a lot of high-end guys, and
well, let's bring him on. He's here. He's here.
Yeah, he's in now. So
hey, Coach.
What's going on?
What's going on? How's everything going? Coach D was rolling through the intro on you. He had your bio. So I said, I saw you in there. I said, let's bring him on. Let him. He's got it down, though. He knows you well.
Absolutely. What's going on?
What's up, man?
Well, Coach, thanks so much for taking some time to come on today. I'm going to try and put, there we go, a little bit better sequence there. We want to talk to you because obviously Derek knows you well, but American Heritage is one of the programs that people always talk about in the state of Florida. You have a unique background as well from a strength and conditioning standpoint. You come from New Jersey. You moved down to Florida. I just learned that you were from High Point. So you got out of there. But that's also a place that has a legendary coach, right? For many, many years. I don't know if he knows the coach that you're good friends with or played for him or not, but really want to really dive into your background and kind of, if you could give us a great rundown of that would be fantastic.
Man, it's been a journey. It's definitely been a journey. I moved down here. Well, actually, I went to Towson University, played there. After I left Towson, my wife is from New York. I'm from New Jersey. She didn't want to live in New Jersey. I didn't want to live in New York. So we both had family. We both had family down here. So we decided to make the move. And to be honest with you, we made the move with really no plan. I started in the parks. I was putting flyers on people's cars for training, and just I had maybe 3 kids that first summer, and I was driving all around Broward County just training kids, really for like $15 a session too, just kind of nickel and diming. eventually got on with a training company, Athlete's Edge, that was based out of FAU. And we trained pro guys. We actually did some training with FAU. Two of my accounts, though, two of my high school accounts, one was Pinecrest in Fort Lauderdale, and the other one was American Heritage. So I was training their football team, baseball team, did a little bit of the basketball team for both schools. I kind of lucked out that when I was at Pinecrest, they had Brandon Knight. Brandon was probably the #1 high school player in the country at the time. At the same time that I was at American Heritage, they had Sony Michel. Actually, the year before, Sony came the year after I started there, but Sony came in the end of his 7th grade year into his 8th grade year. So, I just right place at the right time with both of them. Brandon was a sophomore at the time. Sony, like I said, was a 7th grader. And then from there, it was just grinding. It was grinding. And in 2013, when Mike Rump took the job at American Heritage, they asked me to be the full-time strength coach. They told me I could run my business out of here as well. Not only that, my son got to go to Heritage, as a full-time employee. His tuition was waived. So it was a win-win situation for me, as far as that goes. Moving forward, 10 years, I was a strength coach, running back coach. We had a really good run, had a lot of, we were blessed with the talent that we had. We won 5 state championships in that period. We have 14 guys in the NFL during that period. So it was a crazy run in a short period of time. And then last year, when Pat took the job with the Dolphins, it was kind of like, I was kind of part of the search committee, like, okay, well, who's going to be the next person? And it kind of went on for a couple of weeks. And then my athletic director came to me. He's like, well, what about you? And listen, I had no ambition to be a head football coach. I was good as the strength coach. I had the pulse of the team as the strength coach. So at first I was like, you know what, that's way outside my comfort zone. It's I know what my role is here. I know how to reach all these kids here. And as we went on, I kept saying, nah, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. And then, you start to think, you're like, well, you know what? All these years I've asked these kids to step outside their comfort zone, to make sacrifices. I put them through a bunch of stuff in the summertime that they got to deal with. Their parents make a lot of sacrifices to be at this school. And then you start to look at even the legacy of these kids, like the kids that have gone through here. And I'm not just talking about the professional guys, anybody that's really gone through this program, knows how special this program is in the culture. So with that said, I finally said, you know what, I'll accept the job. And listen, it's definitely a lot. It's a lot of times it's a love-hate relationship with this job. There's, a lot comes with it other than the football part. Actually, the football part is probably the easiest part of the job. But you know what? Like I said, I just felt like I owed it to all the guys that have made the sacrifices, and that have been here that I had to step up and take it. So here I am.
That's a great journey. That's a fantastic journey. Really is a fantastic journey. Well, first of all, what year did you graduate? Did you play at Towson?
I was at 96 to 2000. Okay.
So you were, because I played at UConn, and I remember we played Towson when they had Vincent, or that was 93 though, I think. So I was at UConn from 92 to 96. Might have crossed over your freshman year, maybe. I think you guys were in the same conference by then that we were in until we went to D1.
Yeah, and then the back end when I was there, we were in the Patriot League for.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So the first 2 years there, I don't even remember what the name of that conference. But then we were Patriot League. We were Patriot League my last 2 years there, and then of course they went to CAA after that. So
right.
So
very, very cool. So that's quite an interesting journey. First of all, the training part of the business, having started in that realm myself, really gives you a lot of unique skill sets as far as dealing with athletes that I do think helps out when it gets to being a head coach. And one of the things that I always think about is obviously you have your training program and you have the way you go about things, but you're customizing based off of athlete's skill level, what they can handle, what they can't handle, talent level, workload level. And so even though you have your program, you're still have to address each individual athlete's needs, much like a head football coach, right? You have the way you go about things, but at the same time, it's not cookie cutter. You have to individualize things for each athlete to make sure they get to maximize their ability. Talk about kind of the background that, when you said, you know what, I got to step out my comfort zone. Let me, what was the thought process that went into it, and what have you found these first years developing the program?
You know what, from the head coach standpoint, it was kind of easy for me. Another part of it too that I kind of left out, that we've had a staff that's been together through this whole run. Our offensive line coach has been here through the whole run. Our defensive coordinator has been here through the whole run. Our offensive coordinator was here through 4 of the state championships. Then he took a head job himself and then came back. So from that standpoint, it's been, like I said, the football part has been kind of, if the flow was kind of easy for me because I know those guys can coach, and I kind of just let them do their thing. You know what I'm saying? So for me, it was just all the new stuff that comes with it. Like, I've been here for 10 years, and there's stuff that I learned in the first 3 weeks about this school that I didn't even know. So, as far as, the admissions process and all that stuff, the culture stayed the same though. I think that was the biggest thing. And I think that's always, the thing that separates programs is that the culture stayed the same. So for me, I'm still the strength coach. So that's still my baby. And it was business as usual there. I'm still the running back coach because I have to coach. I can't just be walking around the practice field. I have to coach. And, in the beginning, there was some stuff that I had to lean on some of the guys that have been here, like Pat and Mike, especially Pat, because Pat was the most recent coach, and I would call him like, man, Pat, how do we handle this? How do you handle that? And Pat one day just had to tell me, like, Mike, you don't understand. You've been doing a lot of that stuff through the years anyway. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, the title changed, but, you've been organizing the schedules, and you've been, putting certain things together, and you've done the pregame stuff, and you've done all that stuff. So it was a matter of just kind of keeping it simple, and just listen. We've done this. It's not our first rodeo. You know what I'm saying? Let the coaches coach, and just it was business as usual. And then I'll just deal with whatever I got to deal with, away from the field. But as far as on the field stuff, it was business as usual. And in the strength and conditioning department, like I said, I never really gave that role up. So and a lot of these kids have been here. Especially the group I had last year. I had 27 seniors last year, so they understood the process as well. So it made the transition. It made the transition easy for me. Minus the, like I said, all the off the field stuff I got to deal with. But from that standpoint, the culture took care of itself, really.
I think that let me jump in. I think it's something like I understand. Like, so when you got down there, right, and like you said, the culture hasn't changed. The head coaching title has changed. Guys have changed, but the nuts and bolts of it have stayed together. I think that's something that a lot of guys look over, and they don't see that aspect of it when it comes to it. And you've literally been that guy for that long. And I think when, as a player, you see the guy that's out there doing strength training, doing the conditioning stuff. I mean, you're running through the drills still with them. I think that adds a little bit of a different look to like, yo, that's my coach. He's going through this with us out here in the middle of June with the heat and all this kind of stuff. Like, I want to play for that guy. And now that structure is in place for the program, right, you just have to take that title and not screw it up.
Yeah, really not screw it up. No, but Derek, this just because we have a relationship. Like, that was the vision coming in here. As the strength coach when I was hired. I mean, I had already been here, obviously working from a company standpoint, but but that in 2013, that was the vision, to build a culture a lot like, really, you and I have talked about this, like the University of Miami used to have with when all those guys came back and trained and stuff like that. So, and I think that's the thing that a lot of people see too. Like right now in the weight room right now, I think I've got 9 pro guys in there that played here. And they come back and they train and they interact with our kids. And, it's not even, it's at the point now where they just look at it, oh, well, that's Brian and that's Sony. And, saying that's like, it's not, nobody's starstruck over it or anything like that. Like the guys, it's part of the culture. It's part of what we do here. You know what I'm saying? It's normal to see those guys here. It's normal to see those guys on the sideline on a Friday night if they have a bye week. Now it also motivates those kids too. Like, I want to be one of them kids that are on, the 14 people that are on the fence, the 14 banners that are on the fence out there when you come in. It definitely motivates those guys. But once again, I think the biggest thing is that the culture takes care of itself when you have a strong culture like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, and that was the thing. That was one of the main reasons I said, you know what, I'm going to take this job, because I wanted to make sure that what we had built, you don't know if you bring a guy in from the outside, and obviously he's going to have his own philosophies and stuff like that, and he can say whatever in the interview. No, we're going to keep this but you know how that is. If I were to go to another school, I want to do it my way. So I think that was one of the biggest things for me, is that not just the kids, the coaches that are here, like Mario Perez, his kids went here. Darryl Porter, his kid went here. You know what I'm saying? Travis Spiver, our offensive line coach, he's got 2 girls that go here. You know what I'm saying? So and the list goes on of guys that they're really part of this program. You know what I'm saying? And I don't mean just like they're invested in this program. So it was important for me to just make sure that stayed together, and what we had built, continued on, and the culture continued on. And that's why I say the easy part's the football part and the training part and all that, because they know that there's a certain way that we do stuff here. The standard is the standard, and I know that sounds cliche, but it's true. The standard, there's a standard here, and it's a high standard. You know what I'm saying? And that's got to continue on. So that's why I felt it was important to step up. And you're right. And listen, man, you're not the first person. These people that are in that weight room, when I took it over, I got congratulations. Now don't mess up my program. They didn't use that language, but it was don't my program. So there's a standard here. There's a standard for me too. So that's the unique thing about this place, is that it's got a really unique culture where that everybody, it really is a family. I know everybody talks about family, but it really is, because these guys are always here.
What are some of the unique challenges that you might encounter? Maybe obviously there's a lot of top tier talent there, managing that within the team. You talked a lot about culture, but what are some of the unique challenges that you feel either your program deals with or you deal with, on a day-to-day basis?
I think from the outside looking in, I think people think that we just get a bunch of 4- and 5-star kids and we just load up every year, and we absolutely have talent. We absolutely have talent. But people are shocked when they hear that we only have a roster of 48. I coached in the All-American game this past year, and I was talking to the coach from Buford, and I was trying to get some practice ideas off of him. We got a roster of 95. I can't do first team offense and second team defense on this field. You know what I'm saying? And I can't do that. So, but we make it work. We make it work, and it's. I think another thing you deal with in South Florida is we invented the portal. Plain and simple, we invented the portal. I mean, the movement down here is crazy. I mean, every day there's a kid at a different school, and you're trying to keep up with. I know college coaches come in like, man, I thought that kid was over there. Yeah, I thought so too, but now this week he's over there. Or so our process here is not, is a little bit more thorough than other places, because this is one of the top private schools in the country. So there's stuff that we have to overcome here as well as far as getting kids in. They do a great job here of supporting me and helping with that process, but it's there's a standard academically here as well. So there's from that standpoint, it's it makes it a little bit difficult, but there's enough talent to go around down here, and our biggest thing is developing kids. Yeah, you've got to have dudes, and you've got to have talent, but we also believe that in development here too. We got a lot of kids that their junior and senior year, you're like, I can't believe this kid's on the field right now, but from what he was as a freshman or a sophomore coming in, but that's once again part of the culture and part of the expectation that if we have 48 on the roster, we expect you to contribute in some type of way, and we expect you to prepare, in some type of way, and if you trust the process and you listen to what we're preaching, that your time is going to come, your opportunity is going to come, and these guys do a great job of preparing, and we've had a lot of kids turn themselves into really good football players here, just by like I said, buying into the culture and buying into the program, and there's a lot of kids that we've sent a lot of kids to college that early on, like, man, he's not a college football player, but they've made it and they've been successful at that next level because of stuff, because of the culture and the standard that we're setting here.
From a recruiting standpoint, because you said Florida invented the transfer portal, which I agree with. I mean, guys have. I remember back in the 2000s, guys were moving left or right. First time I ever heard of it. Ran showcase down there, and they're like, "Oh yeah, he was here last year. Now he's here this year." That was when I first learned about that stuff. But from a recruiting standpoint, as far as college recruiting, right? How has that transfer portal and NIL, has that affected you guys at all? Are you as a head coach having to deal with anything with respect to that? Especially a top tier program like yours, I'm sure there are things that are going on that you have to deal with there. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Listen, it's tough. I mean, in my first year, that's what I got hit with my first year, because we had 27 seniors, and it's tough. It's tough for these high school kids right now because of that portal. You know what I'm saying? And you'll have some coaches come in and say, "Coach, we're only taking 2 high school kids at that position," where we took 4 portal kids. Offensive line is one that's really tough with that, because listen, if I can go get a 21 or 22-year-old that's been developed in a system, you know what I'm saying, and he's got his man strength and all that stuff, you know what I'm saying, that's a quick fix for a lot of colleges. The elite guys are going to take care of themselves. It's that next tier down that I think is getting hit with it the most. Just because listen, I tell our kids, if you have something, you probably got to think about locking in early. Just because if it's late, I can't promise you that there's going to be room at a lot of these schools. I mean, we're talking about the Friday before signing day, and I'm calling 15, 16 schools because I've got a really good football player that's still looking for a home. You know what I'm saying? Where normally this kid would probably be a Power 5 kid, you know what I'm saying, or a mid-major kid. Like it's just it's tough right now. It's tough right now, and that's what we're dealing with right now. So, and I can tell that it's wearing on the college coaches as well, because when they come in, a lot of them look exhausted with it. Especially the NIL stuff, because you'll have a kid that, let's say that he's at a UMass or a school like that, and you might take that kid as a freshman, and he was under the radar. Now you develop him for 3 years, and now he becomes an all-conference player. And guess what's happening? They're coming to pluck him out of there. You know what I'm saying? The bigger schools are coming to grab him out of there. So I know it's weighing on them as well. And so it's then you get to the NIL stuff, and that's an interesting topic as well, because okay, let's just say I'm a running back coach at a school and I've got 6 running backs in my room, and the guy that's scoring all the touchdowns is making less money than the guy that hasn't even stepped on the field yet, that can divide your room really quick. So, I know a lot of those guys, just talking to them, a lot of those coaches, like sometimes they don't even want to know the numbers because it makes it difficult in that room that, well, coach, why is he getting this and I'm not, and I'm the one doing all the heavy lifting and, I'm not getting what he's getting. So what I try to talk to those guys, like, how do you build a culture in that atmosphere? You know what I'm saying? So, and they all tell you it's tough. It's tough. And it's the same thing. It's the same thing at this level. You know what I'm saying? Like, so I lost 27 seniors last year that had been here for a long time. And I brought in kids, but now I got to see what cultures have these kids come from. You know what I'm saying? How do they fit what we're doing? Do they know how to win? Do they know how to battle? Or are they just, about themselves? It's definitely a tough environment right now. From a recruiting standpoint, like I said, the high school kids are the ones that are getting hit the hardest with this, just because of no room. You know what I'm saying? But what is happening is a lot of these lower level schools, the Division twos and even the Division threes, are getting really good football players. They're getting really good football players, and like I said, we have a bunch of kids that we've sent to those types of schools, and 5 years ago they would have been Division I players. But it's tough because everybody has a dream of playing D1, and you just got to you got to sit them down, and you got to be real with them and the parents, and just tell them, like, listen, this is the state of college football right now, and you can still get a really good education out of it and play really good football at a lot of these other places. So, but it's tough, man.
Right. And I think with your program too, like, it's a double-edged sword, right? Because you've produced such high level talent that's gone to your Power Fives, to your, what you want to call, the schools that the colleges that people are watching on Saturday on TV are where these guys want to go. And because you've built and sent so many of those guys there, now with the whole state of recruiting and everything like that, now anything less is almost like a pseudo failure, when really you're going to a hell of a spot to get a hell of an education and you're going to play, right? Like, so a lot of those things, I think that balancing act for you is something that a lot of other people don't have to deal with.
There's no doubt. Like, it's gift and a curse, obviously. I mean, there's no doubt because, we talk about standard and all that stuff. And listen, the other part of it too is that, like, you think that a lot of people think when they put that uniform on, they become those people on the fence. You know what I'm saying? Well, you guys got 14 guys, but that's not normal. You know what I'm saying? That's not normal. Like I said, we've been blessed with that. And yeah, we get talented kids, and you're right, Derek. Like the expectation is if I go to American Heritage, I'm going to get Power 5 kids. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And listen, we have a good track record with that, obviously, but the landscape has changed. You know what I'm saying? And
those guys don't see the work that's put in behind the scenes, right? Like, I mean, look, I know you do a great job with your social media. Look, your players are very outgoing when it comes to that stuff, and they like to put this stuff, whatever, and you can kind of stir that narrative and direct that narrative. But at the end of the day, they think that just because, hey, I'm going to American Heritage, I'm putting on that helmet, right? I'm putting on the jersey, and then now all of a sudden, just because I go there, I'm getting an Alabama offer, I'm getting a Tennessee offer, right? Like, this guy's in the building asking about me and all this. But no, man, like, you got to see the work that goes into what these guys do. When your best player is also your hardest worker and sets that example and that culture of what's come from there, because I know what your big time players really have put into it to get where they are. I don't think unless you see that firsthand, people understand that.
Absolutely. And this, there's other things that go into this as well. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's a lot of stuff that recruiting is almost like a beauty pageant. You know what I'm saying? And if you're,
we were just talking about that, because we saw guys going to the University of Florida on their official visit and coming out of like the tunnel with like an announcement, like, so and so here with all the uniforms and that kind of stuff. We were just talking about the pageantry of recruiting. And look, I was with it firsthand with you, right? We took that trip with Sony to Florida, and you saw that how the red carpet was laid out for a guy like that. And that's not ultimately the case, but that's what these guys are trying to do.
See, and here this is where it becomes tough for us as coaches too, because we know, and listen, we all love our players, we support, but we know that there's some kids that are getting overlooked. We know that there's some kids like, man, this kid can play. You know what I'm saying? But like I said, this is a beauty pageant, man. Like it's a projection, especially at those higher and those elite schools. You know what I'm saying? They're gonna take a chance on the offensive lineman that's 6'6", 300 pounds. Okay, he's lazy, he doesn't. Well, but he's 6'6", 300 pounds. You know what I'm saying? Whereas I got a kid that's 6'3", playing left guard for me that's nasty and gets after it and this and that. But that 6'3" is that 6'2", 6'3". Coach, you know what I'm saying? The standard that we have here, we're only taking 6'5". Or okay, yeah, but that's a really good football player. You know what I'm saying? But you got to understand that part of it too, man. It's a beauty pageant and it's a projection, and these guys that are coming recruiting, they got to report back to somebody, and unfortunately you can't bring back well, you know what, I got a 5'7" DB, he can play, but it's just that's you got to realize that part of it when it comes to recruiting too, and it is frustrating, like I said, for us because we play high level competition. Like we don't duck anybody here. You know what I'm saying? So like my first 4 games, I'm playing.
Yeah, I mean, I ran down your schedule. You know what I'm saying? Like you're going up to Washington D.C. playing St. John's, then you got Trinity Christian, right, from Jacksonville,
right,
and then you got to come home and play. Within your municipality, right, county, like you got Chaminade Madonna, who has 5-star studs all over the place, and then Cardinal Gibbons, which is always a battle for you, even more so if it's if you're not seeing them in the playoffs. You see, this is the team that really wants to punch you in the mouth, so you're playing high level stuff.
Absolutely. And that's what I'm saying, and these kids are performing at high levels, but when you try to explain to them the measurables and understand that some of these bigger schools are looking for, it's just, it gets frustrating because that some of these kids can play at those levels or whatever. But you also they also got to understand this. There's a lot of good football out there. There's a lot of good football at these other levels out there. You know what I'm saying? And if you have the opportunity to go to school for free, you won the game. You know what I'm saying? If you get your education paid for, you've won the game. So but these kids have dreams coming up. You know what I'm saying? I don't know any kid that dreams like, what, I'm going to play at this D2 when there's D3. Everybody wants to play at the Alabamas and the Georgias and all that stuff. It's just sometimes you gotta alter your goals a little bit and understand that listen, man, like just because I'm not getting recruited at this level doesn't mean I can't play high level college football. And then after that, you know what I'm saying? Like if you are that guy and you have been overlooked, that next level will find you. You know what I'm saying? Because the NFL is loaded with kids that are, loaded with players that were overlooked. You know what I'm saying? So it's tough because you're playing with kids' emotions and their dreams and stuff like that, and like, coach, I'm doing everything you're telling me to do. You know what I'm saying? I'm producing, I'm working, I'm doing all this stuff, but why is this not coming? But like I said, it's recruiting is a hard thing to figure out, man. It's a hard thing to figure out. So
yeah.
So you work as hard as you can for the kids, and you just, everybody that's here, if you want to play college football, we're going to find a spot for you.
I have a training question for you because we obviously Florida, there's so many fast players, and that's one of the things that I'm sure you're always developing from a speed standpoint, and in recruiting, that's like everything we hear, like how fast guys are running is such an important thing. what are some of, and you've had a lot of really good players that have gone to super high levels, including the NFL. What have you done specifically to try and help people develop speed over time, right? And really develop that power and explosion that they need to run their best 40 times, to run as fast as they can in their routes, or or defensive linemen coming off the edge. What are some of the things that you've done development wise? Because speed is such a premium nowadays. What have you done there?
I'm gonna be honest with you. The simplest answer I can give you for us is from the day I got here took over in 2013 as the strength coach to right now, is I tell our skill guys, you gotta go run track. You gotta go run track. You know what I'm saying? I was a big track guy. I was a big track guy in high school and coming at, and I know what it did for my speed. There's something about running 200s and 150s and 400s. Yeah, listen, I know the science behind all this stuff. I do, I do combine training every year. So but that track is different, you know what I'm saying? And one of the advantages obviously we have down here is that when football season ends, our guys are on the track in December. And I joke with the guys every year, but I'm serious about I say, all right, man, y'all don't win this second or third round game, you guys are going to track practice on Monday. Nah, coach, all right, you're going to track practice on Monday. So we've been really successful here with that. Greg Barnes is our track coach and does an unbelievable job developing these guys. We've had Anthony Schwartz, that was a 10 flat guy here. Tyson Campbell, who plays for the Jacksonville Jaguars, was a 10-2 guy. Pat, I believe, ran 10-7. Pat Surtain ran 10-7. But we have our guys. We have our guys on the track. I got 3 freshmen this year that all ran under 10-5. One ran a 10-2. But
wow.
It's a great problem to have, dude. I'm telling you.
But it's great to hear someone talk about how a track, like, make it that simple. I was a track guy myself. I talk about
big track guy, Mike. Big track guy. Like that's what, like, a lot of the stuff that I ever had. Quite like, hey, he ran this on the track. Like, what this guy? Like, so it links up, and you get it because you have had those guys that can fly.
And the thing with that is I'm kind of old school on that. And Derek, I know you are too, as far as football season ended, you were going to basketball. After basketball season, you're either going to baseball or you're going to track. I went football, basketball, track. You know what I'm saying? Now, it's a little bit tougher down here because of the way, because our seasons are, like I said, baseball season starting in December also. Track is still, but I'm a big believer in having those guys go and either run. I like our big guys to wrestle, you know what I'm saying? Because listen, we do everything in the, a lot of conjugate stuff in the weight room, a lot of explosive stuff in the weight room. I'm doing speed stuff and agility stuff, during the winter into the spring as well. But that the competition, you know what I'm saying, the even going to wrestling, that's a different type of strength. That's leverage. And, when you got a guy grabbing on you and pulling and you got to twist and turn, your core strength is different, you know what I'm saying? But that's another competitive thing. So you're never turning that competitive switch off. So, but from a speed standpoint, to answer your original question, I'm pushing guys to track. Now, we have had some issues the last couple of years because now we had some 7-on-7 babies for a little while there. And that's tough too, dealing with their schedule, because they'll be gone on the Thursday, and then when I finally get them back on Monday, well, coach, we played 10 games this weekend, and so that made it challenging too. But we had this year we had another group that really were track kids coming in, and listen, you can tell, man, you can just our speed is just different when we have guys running track, so. Now, we had 8 guys that actually went to the States and track this year, so it kind of pushed into our spring practice schedule. It actually really pushed into our spring practice schedule. But I'm cool with it, man. I'm a track guy, and I just feel like there's no. You could tell me whatever the science is. That 400 makes you stronger. You know what I'm saying? those 200, those repeat 150, that makes you stronger. It's a different type of speed. It's a different type of strength. So I'm a big believer in what the track develops.
Now, do you think that thought process, that belief of you, hey, go do another sport, go do that, you think that has any ties to how we are up here in the Northeast? Because look, we're playing a different sport every season, and we can't go outside and throw 7-on-7. We don't have spring football up here. So do you think that has something to link up, or is it just different?
Well, listen, honestly, Derek, I can only speak for myself, and I haven't been up there. I'll go up and visit, but I haven't been up there to see what it's like now. Here's the issue with some of this stuff. The multi-sport stuff I feel is huge, but I'm also seeing that, man, if you're not specializing in some of these sports, you're actually falling behind. You know what I'm saying? So I've even taken it a step further as far as my training, that I try and put multi-sport movements into the training. Like, listen, man, look, I don't want to offend anybody here, but you got all these guys, these receiver guys, and these they're teaching, all these receiver gurus now. That's basketball, man. That's basketball. Look at all the releases. It's basketball. That's one-on-one basketball. You know what I'm saying? Moving your feet, hips, all right, attacking the hip, set up moves. It's basketball. You know what I'm saying? Like you and I, as soon as football was over, I was going to basketball. You know what I'm saying? And we were going to hoop for 4 months, and that's I wasn't doing agility drills or releases or any of that. You know what I'm saying? We were hooping, and that's man, I'm gonna go lock you down, or I'm gonna take you off the dribble. That's how you develop, those movement skills. And I think that's essential. So I try and implement as much of that as I can into workout, because the reality, like I said, once again, it's with the specialization, you actually are falling behind a little bit, and it's kind of crazy. So you're kind of fighting that battle. Like, we have a high level kid right now. That's our center fielder, our starting center fielder, and he's playing baseball all summer, but when he comes back to football, when's he getting his at-bats during the fall? You know what I'm saying? And we're talking about a high-level kid here, like a kid that's going to be a high major program baseball player in college. Like, meanwhile, other guys are taking those, are in the cage in the fall, and they're playing fall ball and all that stuff. So, and this kid is a great athlete. So you're going to punish him for being a great athlete? You know what I'm saying? So it becomes a tricky situation, especially with the high skill sports like basketball, where you can't take a fall off to play football and not be in the gym and working on your handles and your shot and all that. You're just falling behind. I mean, that's kind of what Kobe was talking about, wasn't it? It's just a math problem. If you're working out 2 times a day and I'm working out 3 times a day, by the time we 1, 2, 3 years in, I'm so far ahead of you. So you're kind of battling that. But listen, man, I'm pushing track. I'm pushing multi-sport guys. You know what I'm saying? So it is what it is. That whether that's an old school mentality, whether that's a Jersey mentality, whatever, I don't know what it is like that up there now, as far as that goes. But that's just what we did, man. We played ball. You got guys now like, Coach, I worked out today, so I gotta go home and I gotta rest. Man, we used to work out for 2 hours and then be at somebody's house or some court someplace, and we're gonna play basketball for 3 more hours later that night. We weren't worried about, man, my legs are dead and all this stuff. You just played, you know what I'm saying? So I don't know, man. I can go on forever about this topic, So the other thing I find too is that if you don't structure stuff for kids now, hey man, you gotta have some creativity, imagination. Go, like, why are all these courts empty? You know what I'm saying? Like, well, my trainer has me scheduled for. Man, I don't know, man. I don't. Like I said, it's a little different now. So, but I can go on forever about that.
Those are great points. I mean, all that's valid too. I mean, we look at, when you talk at baseball players, the 2 of the best players in the Yankees, those guys were the 3-sport athletes, right? So, and they're gigantic. They're 6'6" and 6'7", and they played football. They played, They played basketball. They played baseball. And so you're not gonna get, I think when they're looking at when you're talking at the highest level, when kids come in for Alabama and stuff like that, or Georgia, I do think that they're looking, hey, this kid's doing it, and he's also playing 2 other sports. What's he gonna be like?
Right.
He now is with me 24/7, right? So Aaron Judge, when he's with me 24/7, he's no longer playing football, basketball, and baseball. Now that's why those guys are the number 1 picks, right? And same thing with football. And I think that when you get to a higher level, if all things are equal, and this guy's playing 3 sports, and this guy's a specialist, I'm taking the guy that plays 3 sports. And when I hear coaches talk about it, like Urban Meyer talk about it, they're all saying 3 sport. What they're really saying is, hey, if I get 2 guys that are equal, okay. Now, obviously, if 2 guys aren't equal, that's a different situation. But if I get 2 guys that are equal, and the one guy's a 3-sport athlete, I know he's going to be the better guy down the line, because his upside is a lot higher than a guy who's been specialized in. And this is nothing. Listen, everybody's different. Some kids need to specialize to give themselves that chance. And there's nothing, I get both sides of the story just like you do. But if all things being equal, and people are like, I put in all this time. If all things are equal, they're going to take the guy that's a 3-sport athlete or the 2-sport athlete, because once he focuses and once he's doing one thing in college or at the pro level, he's going to get much better very quickly. And I think that's the when you say the advocate part of a 3-sport athlete, developing all those all-around skills, when it comes time to specialize, your upside to me is higher.
And a couple parts to that. Number one, I look at it from this standpoint. Like I just said, you're not turning off the competitive switch at any point in time during the year. Like, I go to a basketball game or whatever, and there's been a lot of stories of guys that have been recruited in a sport that's not their sport. You know what I'm saying? Like, just by I go to basketball, I can tell how competitive a kid is. You know what I'm saying? Does he fold or does he shy away from pressure? That tells you a lot about the character of a kid. You know what I'm saying? Does he back down when the lights are the brightest? You know what I'm saying? And are you disciplined enough to work in that sport as well? You know what I'm saying? So all those things factor in. And then going back to what you're talking about, let's go back to the original thing, speed. If I got a kid that's running a 10, matter of fact, the kid that I have that ran a 10-2 didn't even play high school football last year. He was a kid that came over late. He actually was a kid that played one more year in the park, but he runs a 10-2. He's got 4, maybe 5 offers already, because they're seeing like, you can't. That's something that you can't coach that. You know what I'm saying? But you can develop it. And I think one of the knocks on the 7-on-7 stuff, and I'm not knocking 7-on-7 at all, because I believe that that's helping kids get reps and develop as well. But you're not hitting top speeds. You know what I'm saying? You're not developing speed during that period of the year. And some of it too is just the repetitive movements. Like we played 15 games last year, and I got kids going to 7-on-7 2 weeks later. Like Derek, and you know this, and remember that first time you went to basketball practice? Like, damn, bro, my groin is sore and all that. I thought I was in shape from football. You know what I'm saying?
Football shape, right? It was always you're going from one to the other, but it was like, oh, I played football, so I'm going to be in shape for basketball. Hell no, that first basketball practice was brutal. You had to get in that type of shape,
right? And coach, you know this as well from the track standpoint. Like, when you're training guys that for 40s and stuff like that don't have a track background, you got to teach everything. You got to teach rise. You got to teach the angles. You got to teach them how to relax. That's why I just laugh when the reason he ran fast because he was a track guy. Duh. Yeah, you're answering, like, you just answered the question. Like, come on, man. Like these guys learn that stuff. You learn how to relax when you run. You learn the rhythm of sprinting. People don't realize there's a rhythm to sprinting. The rhythmic rise of coming out of a stance, and you know what I'm saying, and not rushing it and continuing to push. You know what I'm saying? Like all that stuff. You learn all that stuff in there. And then listen, man. It's from the day that you can first run, racing is different. Racing is different. That's a different type of speed, man. Like when you got somebody and I ran the anchor leg of a 4x4 when I was in high school. When you hear that click, click, click behind you, you got to find a different gear. You got to find a different, you got to dig deep and find some dark places to make sure that click, click, click doesn't pass you up. So it's just a total development that you get with a 3-sport athlete or 2-sport or multi-sport athlete that it's like I said, going back to our center fielder, we just won a state championship in baseball and there were some big moments that he had to come up in and I know I can trust that kid on a Friday night in a big moment. The lights are not going to be too bright for him. So, and you find that just by observing them in other sports that they play. So,
well, I would say when my skill guy runs the 400, I know I can trust him.
Oh, absolutely.
Because that pain when you have 100 meters to go, and those legs start to go, and you've got to fight, and there's a guy next to you in the same thing in the same situation, and you're fighting it, and you run that 8, 10, 12, 14 times in a season. Right. Woo! You go to football practice is easy.
Absolutely. But let's now, and like I tell the guys all the time, like, listen, man, I know the science behind this. I know the science behind speed. I know you need full recovery and all this, but sometimes we gotta go meet Jesus. You know what I'm saying? Like sometimes, because that's what's going to happen in the third and fourth quarter. Them legs are going to be dead. You're going to be, especially like a team like Chaminade last year, they ran 103 plays.
Woo!
Yeah, exactly. And we only had a defensive line of maybe 6 that were rotating. But I knew that we could withstand that because I make our big guys like we call it a perimeter run. Like we'll go through a full.
Big guys are running. Your big guys do a lot of the skill set stuff and still are big guys.
We're gonna go through a full change of direction workout. All right, we'll go through a full change of direction workout, and at the end, they know when I say get in the corner, they go to the corner of the end zone, and we have a perimeter run. Basically, back of the end zone, down the sideline, back of the end. Basically, simulating almost like a 400, and we're on the gas, man. We're on the gas with that, and you could say, okay, well, when are they ever going to run 55 seconds? No, man, I need to see them fight. And I know when we're ready, when my big guys are running it under a minute. I know when we're ready, when my small guys are coming in at 39, 40, like that's when I know that we're ready to go. You know what I'm saying? And
that's awesome.
And and you see it show up in the games. Like I will say that is one thing that if we're with you in the third and fourth quarter, we got you because once they start grabbing those toes because they're cramping and stuff like that, and we got you. And we're downloading information in the first 2 quarters, and then we're gonna keep coming. You know what I'm saying? So that's listen, like you said, Coach, there's something about that 400. I don't care what the science says. When I was in college, I would actually, my first couple of years, it was like, okay, we doing the 40-yard bursts and the 30-yard bursts, and then in the summertime, in the afternoon, I go by myself and I'd run 150s. And listen, even today, I don't run them very fast, but I'll still run some 150s occasionally. But all of a sudden, your speed comes back and you're strong. So yeah, okay, it's not the same velocities. 400 is not the same velocity as a 100, but there's something working there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
it's a type of strength. So
yeah, there's no doubt. Well, and Derek, you might have been on the staff at Don Bosco at the time. I'm not sure, but no, this is you're probably in college still. But in 2005, I remember we went up to a 7-on-7. This is when I think the youngest Sims was on Don Bosco, and the most impressive thing, we were at a 7-on-7 tournament there, and the high school I was coaching with. And the most impressive thing I had ever seen, and I was like, this team is going to be always unstoppable. Coach Toll had the linemen on the track running 100-meter sprints with like a 25, 30-second break in between, but 100-meter sprints. And it wasn't like they ran like 1 or 2. They were doing 12 to 14 of them. I mean, and they would run them, and they had to make them in a certain time, right? And I was like, I told my team, I said, you want to be a great team? Those linemen right there, no, those guys ain't never going to get tired. Right. They're never going to be tired of the game. A game's going to be nothing for them. When the other guys put their hands on their knees, so the D line is putting their hands on their knees, those linemen aren't going to be putting their hands on. They're going to be looking for another rep and trying to put a pancake on you.
Right.
So I saw that. And I was like, that's why Coach Toll in New Jersey is considered the best. Not X's and O's or any of this other stuff, because his lineman could do that.
Well, I'll tell you what, that was always a big thing, right? And it's comparable to what you guys do, Mike, because look, you've had Bosco teams come down to you and that type of stuff, but like their whole mentality was always, when it came down to it, like, look, teams may be better, they may be whatever, but we're going to be in better shape, and we're going to just be able to, when that third and fourth quarter comes, right, when you're looking across and your opponent is winded, he's shot, he's looking at the ground, right, like you're still going to be going full speed. So if that happens, and look, and you've had to condition your roster because, like you said, you have less guys, just numbers wise, than everybody else. So those guys need to stay on the field. They need to play special teams. They need to have that shape, and then ultimately to be in that shape, and then ultimately have that mental capacity to still fight and then win.
Right. And coach, and kind of going back to that, now think what they're telling you from a science standpoint. Why your lineman should never run more than 20 yards. And if you just do a whole bunch of 20, I get it. I know what the science says. Listen, I've got the certification. I've got the degree. I get what the science says. But there's a whole nother aspect to that. And a lot of this too is the mental part of it too. You know what I'm saying? If we had a kid that came over here. This kid is committed to Louisville now. When he came over here, talking about that perimeter run, I'm not lying. He came in the first time he ran that. I think it was like 2 minutes and 25 seconds to run around the field. I said, I promise you, by the end of the summer, you'll be under 1:15. He's running that under 50 seconds now. You know what I'm saying? Like, okay, so what does it mean? I'll tell you what it means. Now he's dominant on the field. That first year, it was kind of like you shine away from the way. Now he's dominant on you're creating also a mental toughness about you. You know what I'm saying? That, man, those linemen are running all those 100 meter sprints, and they're all making the time. Man, you come out with a different swag to you. You know, on a Friday night. You know what I'm saying? Like, even I told the guys the other day, and Derek, I did tell you, I'm not jumping in as much as I used to. You know what I'm saying? I had the knee last year, but you know, that's I'm back from that. But I run 2200s before every game. When they go to FCA, I go out by myself and I run 2200s before every game. Why 22? Because a normal person would probably run 10 or 20. I go to 22. And I'm not playing it down. I haven't played it down since 2001 or whatever the hell it was. But it's the fact that it's developing a mental edge and a mental toughness about you, you know what I'm saying, and setting the example and just, you know, like that's stuff that's not in the books. That's stuff that you don't learn about that in college. You know what I'm saying? That's there's some trial and error, and you can't do that with everybody. You know what I'm saying? That's part of building the culture and the standard. Like, it don't matter, man. It don't matter that we got a road game. Guess what? I'm gonna run my 22 on the field before we get on the bus. You know what I'm saying? And it's the details of it. It's just the urgency in what you do, and getting those guys to understand, like man, like you said, this whole thing, the basis of all this, and I've been preaching this to you since you were in high school, is work, man. Is work. No matter what's going on, whether you've lost 2 games in a row or whatever, or it's you got to put your head back down. You got to grind, and that's life, man. That's life with anything, because you're going to face a lot of adversity. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're going to face a lot of adversity in life. And I tell these guys this the other day, like, even after football, you're going to have to compete. You know what I'm saying? You're going to go, especially in this, you're going to go into a job interview and there's going to be 7 other people trying to get the same job as you. You're going to have to compete. You know what I'm saying? So So you got to develop these traits now, and you've got to develop your mental toughness now, because you're going to have to get through hard times and stuff like that. So our guys embrace that, man. Our guys really do. They embrace that, and we don't even look at it as work anymore. The guys coming in do. The guys coming in like, man, this is crazy. Like, yeah, but this is why we win here. You know what I'm saying? Like, we had a kid from another school, and he's like, Coach, now I understand why you guys are playing in the
right
in the state game.
Because a lot of these other programs look at you guys like you're the little stepchild, right? Like you're the little brother, and we're St. Thomas Aquinas, or we're Miami Central, or we're this, and like all these dudes, like they don't know what it actually takes to like sustain this long period of time, and then the bar that is set within the program, itself. And I've guys, and the whole thing for me is that it comes back to, the culture that's set, where these guys are now, you're talking 12, 13 guys in the NFL, and they're coming back to work out at American Heritage, right? They're not going to the college they went to, right? They're not going, to their individual. Now they might do that stuff on their own, but when the gist of it comes down to it, like they're going back to their high school to train in the off season, and they want to see what the new crop is like. And are you boys going to live up to what we did? Right. And don't you dare take this standard that we set. Don't you do something that makes it look negatively upon, right? Like, so you set that. I think that culture has a lot to do with, why guys want to come to you. And listen, when they come to you now, I got to continue to recruit my own roster, because that's the world you're living in, right? Because everybody wants to go and get an American Heritage guy, because why not, right? And we're talking high school to high school. Like you said, you guys invented the portal down there. And this is now like what we're going through up here. And guys don't understand the 7-on-7 world or embrace this or not. But it looks like you, in terms of the best model, is to embrace everything, but ultimately at your core this is what we're about, and this is where you maximize your potential. Because at the end of the day, it just comes down to putting in the hard work and getting through it, and you'll be successful. And a lot of guys don't understand that.
Absolutely. And that's where you got to fall back. You got to have something to fall back on. You know what I'm saying? And then you fall back on those standards and those values and stuff like that. And listen, I will tell you this place is not for everybody.
No. And you've seen it. You've had high-level guys come in. You've had high-level guys leave. But what else? Like, everybody wants to see the Surtains of the world, the Brian Burns of the world, the Sony Michels of the world. But what they don't understand is, like, you've had quarterbacks go to Harvard.
Right.
It's something that's like, oh, and that guy, listen, just as proud of that guy is the guy that's going to Bama.
Absolutely, because that guy made the same sacrifices, put in the same work. You know what I'm saying? Did all the same stuff. So and once again, it goes back to this. Like you're not putting value on where they on different values on where they go to. You know what I'm saying? Like if a kid is going to school and he's getting an education and it's at a high level school like a Harvard, any school really, to be honest with you, listen, that you've used this gift that you've been given, or this tool that been given, this game of football, to get you into a better spot, to set you up for the rest of your life. The same thing with kids that come here, you know what I'm saying? Like, your gift that you've been given, whether it be on a little league level coming in or from another school, brought you to this school. This is one of the top private schools in the country. So that gift has given you the opportunity to come to a school like this. And I think that's kind of what gets missed a lot of times too, especially down here. It's football. But listen, man, we make sure that these kids are getting a high level education here, are doing all the things that they need to do. I tell my kids all the time this too.
Academically, right? Like your whole entire process of going to your school is very different than, a St. Thomas Aquinas, right? Like a school literally right around the corner, kind of like the way they get people in and what they do academically is not what American Heritage does. And it's the same type of thing up here, but you're just looking at different levels.
And I'm not going to talk. I can't talk for any other school because I've only been at this school. So I know this. I know what this place offers outside of football. academically what they're about here. We tell our kids all the time, stop hanging out with each other. Stop hanging out with just the football players, because there's a lot of amazing stuff going on this campus. Like, you know, when I was in the classroom, you're required to go to graduation every year as a faculty, and you know, it's long and all that stuff. But you sit there, you listen to the valedictorian, the salutatory, and you're like, man, these people are doing unbelievable things here. You know what I'm saying? And some of these kids that you're going to meet here are going to be connections that you're going to want to have later in life. A quick story. I had a kid in one of my classes, one of my strength and conditioning classes one year, and I was just, you know, having a conversation with him, and I'm like, well, what colleges are you thinking about going to? And he's like, Coach, you know what? He's like, I don't think I'm going to go to college. I said, oh, well, why not? He's like, well, you know, I've already started up 3 tech companies. I'm like, what? But, you know, and I asked some of the guys on the team, I'm like, have you ever talked to him before? You know what I'm saying? Like, nah, Coach, you know, he's kind of quiet. I said, you guys need to start talking to some of these people and start building relationships. And our guys really have done a good job with that of talking to some of the kids and other kids of the student body. And you'd be surprised, like, some of the kids that you see talking to you, like, man, that kid's from the city of Miami, and he's talking to a kid that's not even from this country, you know. So and they're having a relationship and a bonding and stuff, and it's really a cool thing when you see these kids actually, you know, interacting with each other, and you're like, man, look, you know, they got a lot of stuff in common, and if they don't, they're learning about each other and stuff like that. And these are connections that you're going to have for life. And you know this, football is only a small part of your life. That's only a small part of your life, whether it only be high school or you only get to the college level, or if you're blessed enough to even play in the NFL, that's a short, you know, a short stint too. So, you know, you got to take advantage of these relationships and you know, and the connections that you build at a place like this. So that's, you know, it's special beyond just the football here. So, you know, that's something that we really, you know, preach with our kids, to get out there and talk to these other kids and, you know, become a well-rounded person.
Well, Coach, this has been, I mean, I'm sure Derek feels 100% the same. Been absolutely phenomenal talking with you today. I mean, an hour and 12 minutes flew by. I'm worried that I'm taking you away from other things, that your phone's blowing up, you know. I want to thank you for coming on today and talking with us. It's just unbelievable, just the knowledge you have and the experience. And you know, just the depth of your understanding of what it takes, not just to be a great football player, but to really be well-rounded and everything those young men that you work with need to do. Thanks so much for coming on today.
I appreciate you guys having me.
Have a great day, Coach.
All right, big guy. Appreciate you, buddy.
I'll talk to you, Derek.
All right, man. Be good.
Bye. That was phenomenal.
Yep. Good dude, man. Like, really, he's grinded. He's, you know, he's worked his way there, but he's also built something that's, you know, and we didn't even get to talk about his business, right? And like,
I know the D2D, right?
Yeah. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, I'm just telling you, like, he really stepped in it perfectly when he was able to link up with that school, and they allow him to run that business out of the school, taking away that big facility type of, you know, now I got to put that into it. And it's, you also don't, like, if to me, you look at that, something like that, right? Like, if a New Jersey high school private school coach tried to do something like that, where they ran their own business out of a school in order to ultimately benefit the school, right? Because he don't take anything away from it. If anything, he increases it more, because now all these guys that are successful and making money come back, right? Which is more eyes on that school, more eyes here. Like, probably they look at it and say, these guys coming back, that's going to give us more tuition than, you know, but at the same time,
well, think of all the NFL guys that I've worked with. If I was at a school,
imagine them all, like, but I mean, imagine that coming back to your school and that prominence. But like, for them to look at it and say, hey, you can do all that stuff out of our school. Let's go. Right. So
phenomenal
to be at a school that supports, like, you know, look, this is how we do it. Yeah, you're football, but you still have to do it this way and then still be successful. There's a lot to it, man. You know?
Yeah, they get it. I mean, listen, One day they'll get that process. It is interesting when you bring that up because I always think of all the obviously me being in that industry, right? All the battles I always have. The first thing they say to you is you can't. They don't
Right.
want you to cross over. Meanwhile, here's a place that's integrating it and the success that they have.
It's there. Yeah. And here's what's funny, and he didn't even reference it, and I don't know if a lot of people, when he's talking about those two guys that really started his whole thing, Sony Michel and Brandon, right? So Brandon was a basketball player. So he was the number one player. Brandon Knight went to the University of Kentucky, I believe was only there for 1 year, then went to the league, and he's been in the league bouncing around, but the highest of the high hoopers. And then he had Sony Michel, who rushed for 1,000 yards as an eighth grader.
Yeah.
Right? But even with him going through a torn ACL, right? Like a high level guy, Brandon being, in the league, but not the guy in the league, right? Because of what has gone on. So, Mike's been that guy for all of these high level people the entire time. And I think that's what separates him individually as a coach, not just because he's a guy that's coached me or a mentor. It's that his ability to connect with guys on a different level, right? And he's seen a lot and he's been able to communicate. He's worked with some great people. He's like a sponge. He's always learning, right? Because he knows what it takes to get there. But, you also look at you don't keep staffs together unless somebody's kind of holding that thing together, right? And even though he wasn't the head guy, he's the strength and conditioning guy. He's in the gritty. He's down with them. Like he's, whatever doing it. So to keep a staff together, look, you see some of these private schools. Hey, I'm coaching here this year. I'm coaching there next year. Like they're all over the place. Right. So to keep that together, right? And that wasn't even talking about, he doesn't even talk about that some of these guys that were on staff were pros themselves, like Gadsden, Patrick Surtain, like these guys, Mike Ruff, like he's working alongside and he's just this guy from, I went to Townsend, right? And I'm not even from here. I'm from Jersey, right? Like, so now I'm down here and there's just a lot. And it's for me to see it, right? Because I've seen it from literally ground zero to watch it build and just watch it continue to grow. And then ultimately him have success. Cause I had that conversation. Like, do you want to be the head coach? Cause at first it was like, hey, we're looking for a new head coach. And then it was like, hey, I'm going to be the head coach. And it was like, and then it was, hey man, there's a lot that goes into this that I had no idea. And that was from being the strength and conditioning coach and teaching in the building. And he still didn't know all of those things that had to go along with it, which I think is interesting in itself. And it's not like, Coach Surtain before him was keep everything close knit, not worry about, like he was open about sharing things with his assistants. So for him to go into a program and still not know certain things just is a credit to whatever. And then I think him talking about obviously, the NIL stuff and how college guys transfer portal stuff and we've talked about this and said this, the guys that are going to get hurt are the high school players, because like he said, why am I not going to take a 21-year-old lineman who's been in a college system, who's already that much further ahead? Or look, if that guy's 6'6", yeah, that 6'3" guy may have better stats and may play better, but he's 6'6".
Correct.
So, sometimes it's like, and then he talked about look, man, I got to play all this talent that's literally right in my back corner, like literally around the block from me, right? Like, how do I keep guys here? How do I not, like you say, they invented the transfer portal.
It's amazing. That was an amazing interview. It was amazing to hear. And it's such a great program, but also the grounded part of it, like the part.
Yeah, he's very humble too, right? Like he's a guy that understands it. And he's also not a guy, like I'm pretty sure most people, even if they are, quote unquote rivals or whatever, when you mention his name, I'm sure they have a positive opinion about him, even though he's the outsider or he's from American heritage, right? Like,
how about the thing on track and how? So I by the way, I didn't know that. I didn't.
Oh yeah. Well, that's it's stuff that I've mentioned to you in passing, right? Like, and I've tried to hey, this guy's got which is why I wanted you to hear it, because it's different if I say, hey, my buddy down there does this or whatever. But when you hear it from him, this is a guy Like, we're talking number 21 in the country, preseason max preps, ranked team, 13-2 last year, lost in the state finals type, like 5 state titles and 5. Like, this is what we're talking about. And this guy saying, bro, I don't even want you doing football. Go run track.
That's the one thing I try to tell kids. And the mistake that kids do when they run track in New Jersey a lot of times that are football players is they try to do everything all the time.
Focus on 1 or 2 events.
Well, not even that. They'll run track. They'll still go and see their strength coach. Like,
right. They overdo it.
And do 7 on 7. Like,
see, what they don't understand is one of those takes the place of another.
Correct.
Right. So if I'm going to, well, listen, I just love it because look, it used to be funny, right? Because when he was my coach, right? When Mike was my coach, so we would literally go from playing Thanksgiving Day, right? We'd have a football game. And then the next day, right? He would be at his other school coaching basketball with his uncle. And I'd be at basketball practice. And it'd be like, yo, this sucked.
Did
and
he
he's like,
Delaney or
no. He was, there was no tie whatsoever.
Okay,
he was the only reason he was
two high point guys like that.
It was funny. He was a high point guy, like to an extent, but his dad was actually my middle school principal and then ultimately my superintendent in high school.
Okay.
But it was always like, that would have been the original. He graduated high school in 1995 and they tried to like get him to go to Butler because it was like, damn, if this kid could play at Butler, like he's a speed demon, whatever. He was like the original. But then when he finished at Townsend, he had like a year where he was trying to figure it out. So he came back and actually ran like our strength and conditioning program at Butler, like warmed us up in the summer, like did all that kind of stuff. Right. And that was where it was like, whoa, this is a little different, right? Like now we have our own guy, our own Parisi guy, right? Because that's what he was doing, but not many people were doing it at the time. So he took it now to South Florida and it was like, I mean, you heard him, 3 kids walking around the park with flyers saying, come to my stuff. And then just got so lucky that he linked up with a company. They sent him to Pinehurst, which had the #1 basketball player in the country. They sent him to American Heritage, where they had the #1 running back. And then those guys just bought into what he did, I mean, I can remember him having Brandon Knight. I remember being down there with him, working out Brandon Knight.
Yeah, Brandon Knight that went to Duke?
Kentucky. Basketball.
Kentucky.
Yeah. So, and he had him.
At Brandon Knight?
Yes, that was his guy. Okay. And so listen, I went to see him play in a game. Scottie Pippen's in the stands. Jim Boeheim is sitting over there from Syracuse. And these were his high school random games. But he had him in a parking garage, running up the parking garage. That's how he was training him. That's where he was training him that day. And I was just sitting there watching this kid going, this dude's like a division, like the best player in the country. And he's doing this type of stuff, right? So that's been his groundwork foundation. And now he's got a program. Listen, he also, like 2 head coaches have gone through there. They retained Mike, right? Like, yeah, keep this guy. You hear him talk about, I work with all these other programs within the school. I don't know if have you ever seen the Savannah Bananas baseball team? Yeah. Michael Deeb, one of the players on there, Michael Deeb, starting first baseman, I believe, played for Mike as a linebacker and then went to Notre Dame to play football, but also a baseball guy, and now he's playing for them. So, like,
the Savannah Bananas are like the Globetrotters, right?
Right. And this guy's a huge part. Michael Deeb, monster, like dancing out there, doing whatever. And I met him as well. He was like the first year Mike was there before Sony. And he went to, this kid would train, he would work out, all this stuff for football. And now he's doing that type of stuff. So the program itself, look, he's got to battle it because he's got to play. Look, you heard him. We played 15 games. So in Florida, you got to play 15 games just to get into the state finals. There's 5 rounds of playoffs, right? And you're talking, we start in August and we start later than them and finish before them.
Crazy.
Right? And they just run it, which is, and look, like I said, he's got his schedule. He's going up to DC to play St. John's. Then he's going to Jacksonville. But then within his region itself, you're talking about Chaminade. They have the 2 top 10 receivers in the country. It's good for these guys to hear though, a head coach talk about, look, this is the state of college football right now. I mean, he even talked about, the college recruiters coming in and how exhausted they are, right? Those coaches are like, just this NIL deal, right? Or he's talking about guys like, hey, I took a swing on this guy, I've developed him, and now he's going to leave me because that's what happens. I mean, it's the world that we're kind of living in, man. It's tough. So you really got to be, if you're a dude, you got to be a dude.
No doubt. On that note, let's end the podcast. Fantastic podcast.
Sounds good, man.
2 for 2, man.
Crushing it.
Crushing it. All right. Until next time.